Hey, one more thing before you go. In this episode, we explore the fascinating relationship between quantum creators and spirituality and how it relates to our multidimensional selves. By bridging the gap between science and spirituality, we create a framework for a more holistic view of our existence. Discover how quantum insights reveal the interconnectedness of everything at a fundamental level and how you can harness these insights to enhance your life. These practices can lead to greater self awareness, a deeper sense of connection, and a more empowered approach to shaping your reality. I'm your host, Michael Herst. Welcome to One More Thing Before You Go. My guest today is Diana MaAra Divine. She's a soul guide, a galactic Lyran shaman. Diana is dedicated to helping others unlock their multidimensional potential. And as a metaphysical activator and educator, she integrates a variety of quantum, shamanic, and psychological tools to offer tailored guidance to all of her clients. We're going to talk about each one of those, by the way. Diana, you can mark these too. Diana is also the founder of the Source Language Institute, which aims to teach and activate the purest communication through source codes, also known as light language. She hosts the Soul Communication podcast and currently facilitates online and in-person sound healing and Phoenix Rising Kundalini activation workshops in the New Jersey, New York area. So, welcome to the show, Diana.
Thank you so much, Michael, for having me. I'm really excited to dive into all these topics today with you.
You know, it's really interesting. I've had a lot of people on the show. I've had shamans on the show. I've had mediums on the show, psychics on the show, Reiki masters on the show, a whole wide variety of things. But some new words here that I'm not familiar with. I'm really excited about talking about those insights and how those help us. So yes, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I always like to start at the beginning. I think that we like to get to know you a little bit. It's almost like a "this is your life" thing. So we're going to start. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up actually in Belarus. At the time, it was Soviet Union. When I was 10 years old, we left Soviet Union just before the collapse and lived in Middle East in Israel. So those two hot areas that are on news today. So that's where I'm from. And so I had the Israeli teenagehood with a lot of freedom there. And when I was about 16 years old, I came to the United States to visit my grandparents, and here I am. So it's been kind of a roller coaster of different experiences across the world. And I've traveled around the world in my 30s. And from Boston, I moved to New York, and that's where I am right now in New York, New Jersey.
New York, New Jersey. Do you have brothers, sisters, siblings?
Yeah, I do. I have a younger sister, and she just moved to Florida with her little toddlers, and so she's experiencing that from New Hampshire to Florida.
Last time we went to Florida, my wife got sun poisoning.
It's hot there, but
Yeah,
so it's hot here, and the temperatures are changing. Everything is changing right now. We live in a time of flux, and we experience a lot of solar flares. We experience a lot of galactic and cosmic activity, which we can talk about. And I very much observe it and track it. And I would say I'm a person who looks for patterns, because this whole holographic reality is all about patterns. So it's interesting to observe how everything is changing.
I think Mother Nature's mad.
Mother Nature is not mad. Mother Earth, who I'm also very connected to, and I've been doing a lot of Earth grid work with for the last decade or so, and I visited that many places around the world to connect with her and activate those different grid points. She's a teenager. So she's too in the process of awakening right now. So as we are awakening, so she does as well. She's trying to understand herself. And in order to move energy, there's always this cataclysmic nature events that we experience in. So that's really what's happening for her and for us.
Well, I have two daughters that grew up through that teenage. I understand. I really do understand that process. I'm interested in a couple of things. What got you interested in in what you do now? I mean, did you go to university? Did you have like another direction in life, and this came to you in it?
My awakening started when I was 21 years old. Actually, it was in Israel when I came back to visit, and my mom took me to this Kabbalah Reiki teacher, and I got my first Reiki initiation, and that's when I started feeling energy. And I think from that point on, my eyes kind of opened wide, and I've been down roller coaster of different experiences, exploring and always staying curious and collecting, I would say, different tools from shamanism to psychology to rituals. And in the process of that, also started re-remembering my past lives. And I've done this always. I've been a high priestess in Atlantean times in Saqqara. This is just on Earth alone. Mayan priest, and other lifetimes that was significant in cycles of Earth where I played a big role, but also started remembering my galactic lives, and those are pretty fascinating. All the way back to the Lyra system, where humanity or humanoid consciousness in this particular reality, in this universal construct, has started. So as I started remembering and connecting, I also met my husband, who is, some people understand the term twin flame. So he's my twin flame, and that has really accelerated in the last 8 years a lot of my processes and remembrances. And so, yes, I have regular degree, like everyone else, and I've pretty actually good in dancing. I would say these different worlds, and done a lot of corporate work, but this is where is my soul mission. Helping Mother Earth to activate and helping others to wake up and really remember who they are.
Well, I like some of the words that when I was doing a little bit of research on you and kind of getting to know you more. You use connected a lot in some form or another, and I do believe, and I really wholeheartedly 100% believe we are all connected, and that connection goes deeper than just like me and my kids and my wife and so on. I believe it's with the universe, and it's with the earth, and with the bees, the birds, and the bees, and the trees, and the grass, and the rocks, and the water, and we're all connected, right?
We live in an interconnected universe where everything matters. So it's all part of the hologram. We are really one. There's no separation in quantum field. There's no real space or time or distance. It's all mere illusion. And therefore, we need to understand that what is happening to us is also happening to an animal or even a growing tree.
Yeah.
So it's a very organic process, and so in that we develop compassion as well, because we realize these are all mirrors of ourselves. And when you start diving into the rabbit hole of the nature of reality, connection, like as you said, connection movement is really the fabric of this beautiful tapestry of life, and we get to experience it here in this earthly realm in the lowest density in this universal construct. So we have to understand that we actually came here to experience polarity in the densest form. In other realms, there are other realms in this universal construct. It's about 12 of them. There's the world of the Garden of Eden. There is the Olympic Valhalla gods. There is the angels. There's so many different frequencies. There's the galactics. They all experience it in different frequency bandwidth. But here on the center stage, that's called Earth. Some call it the bottom of the pit, but really it's the lowest density. We really get to experience it in this physicality, and on the soul level, grow and expand from that.
It is. I think that it's a wonderful opportunity for us as a human being to really get to know our souls a little bit better and a little bit deeper, to have this understanding. Um, I do need to, I've talked to a lot of shamans. I've talked
Mhm.
to shamans, different versions of shamans. This is the first time I've heard. You mentioned a little bit ago, I mentioned in the introduction. Can you help us understand what a galactic shaman is?
Yes, definitely. So I started my journey as a shaman, meaning learning different shamanic practices, studying with the shamans as well, doing a lot of different plant medicine work. So, working closely with ayahuasca medicine. So, I went through a whole journey with ayahuasca and then mushroom. So, various plant medicines that are on earth to help us to connect to who we are. Back to the word connect, but also connect to these different interdimensional spaces in different realms. So if you have to understand each realm is like a house, and within each realm we have different like rooms in a house. So the different dimensional spaces and frequency bandwidths. So and what makes one galactic is the shaman who actually understands the earthly realm really well, which I have. And then at some point, actually, the plant medicine ayahuasca was like, "You complete with me. No more, no more medicine work. You're ready to go galactic." This was about 7 years or so ago, and I was like, "What is galactic?" I didn't understand it. But then after a year of not doing any plant medicine work, my light language, what we're going to talk about, has activated and more galactic memories. And now I'm understanding. So it's a ability to navigate also these galactical dimensional spaces and really understand how it operates, these different frequencies, and how to navigate them in a way that's beyond the earth.
That's a really interesting, I think, a really interesting approach. If you're, especially from your experience and what you've already learned, I think you. Correct me if I'm mistaken, but I think that you were able to take everything that you've learned as you have progressed through this journey, like Reiki and light language and high living and crystal work and everything. All that would contribute to, I think, a deeper understanding as a shaman to be able to help other people by connecting with them at a deeper level.
Yeah, a shaman is someone. So I think the difference when between like a light worker, like I don't like the word light worker. I don't use it ever. I would almost say I'm a dark worker or I'm a void worker. So it's someone who's very comfortable to go to the other side and integrate the light and the dark. Because a shaman has to be really comfortable in operating in the dark, in the void, and knowing how to help someone on their path and integrate these frequencies in their bodies here. So that's another big piece of the shaman, is not just being in those spaces, but also the integration piece of it, which I always talk about. The embodiment is really key.
Is that part of what I know? You have something within your website that talks about high brain living facilitator. That you're a high brain living facilitator. Is that how that plays into to effect, or is that something different?
Well, higher brain living, yes, that's one of the modalities where you're able to, and Kundalini activation, you're able to touch person's specific acupuncture points and activate the somatic frequency of the body. And then as the person starts going through the wave and the somatic energy is activated, or some call Kundalini, Shakti energy that's all within us, it surpasses the lower brain, which is kind of where we are in fight and flight, and it goes into prefrontal cortex, and that's where we are when we're in high ecstatic states. So yeah, so I combine everything. Do I have, like I said, like a whole baggage of different tools? So it's ability to take from shamanism, takes from psychology, use hypnosis to bring people into these different states of consciousness, so they are able to perceive from another perspective their story. Because I think many people just get stuck in a specific reality, in their story, in their beliefs, in their limitations. And the role of a shaman or any really facilitator is to step outside of the story, be more in the higher brain, in those higher gamma frequencies, where you're able to gain other perspectives on that particular situation or your life and make changes. And so when we say we move into 5D, it's not like 5D is somewhere far away. All these different dimensions are available for us here. That's our chakras, the 7 chakras in the body, and more chakras outside of our body that we have to also work with. And that's how us understanding that we are dimensional beings, we are frequency beings, we're literally quantum ourselves, we are light, and we have all these light particles within ourselves. The recognition of all of that is what helps us to live embodied, beautiful lives here on earth. We are really walking gods and goddesses. So we're not the ones who like waiting for these gods and goddesses to send on us. We are the ones who've been waiting for. And
Yeah.
so I feel like my role is to remind everyone that while we, on the soul level, we went through so much to be here. And this is our time right now to really step into that divinity.
How does light language? We mentioned it when you and I were talking before we even started about a light language. How does that play into what you just said?
So, light language, or I call it also source language, because it actually came to me during one of the ceremonies. I actually had a vision that light is just one vehicle of the consciousness. It's also sound, it's also movement. So, it's really expression of the soul in various ways. And as these beautiful, hollow bone, divine beings that we are, we also this is the hardware, right? The temple. The soul is the software. So the software has traveled, has experienced things, and also collected different frequencies through space and time. So let's say my soul has started its experience in this particular reality game that in Lyra system. And then due to Lyran wars, it moved to another system, let's say Andromeda, and then it made it to Earth. But it also interacted with other systems like Draco system and such. So therefore, the soul has imprint of those different frequencies. So light language or source language is not a language per se, like the way we earthly speak here, which is one to one, we have exact translation. It's a frequency language. It's the language of the heart and it's the language of the soul. It's vibrational, it's quantum. So one thing can mean so many things. And so it's really on the feeling level and emotional level. So when I do, for instance, transmissions, I always tell people don't try to translate it, just feel it. Some people have visuals, some people have visceral reaction in their body. It literally moves energy because it's a frequency language. And we, in general, right now, we're moving from the age of materialism to the age of frequency. So we're just relearning, re-remembering what frequency is. And this is organic way to feel it because we all have access to it. It's not like I was born remembering light language, right? Um, I just opened to it and surrendered to that experience and it got activated because I was ready for it on my consciousness ascension process. And now I've been through the years just increasing more frequencies and getting more comfortable in being that hollow bone, that vessel to channel them real time.
That's it kind of, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of information to kind of process, but in
Mhm.
regard to the way we connect across not only here, but across the universe, light language seems to be an opportunity for us to have a communication on a broader spectrum.
That's correct. When my light language, my source language started opening up, I had an experience actually in Mount Shasta. It was like winter solstice during COVID 2020. And usually places call me, and we went there for winter solstice. And I had an experience with the inner earth beings. I don't know if you ever talked about those in the show, but Mount Shasta is known to have inner earth's capital city called Telos. And when I connected to those beings, Lemurian beings, they actually told me that my role was to activate more people to light language. You should know that light language always existed on Earth. You actually, the original name to it, if you look it up, like in a vocabulary, it's glossolalia. So glossolalia is the phenomenon of basically speaking the tongues. I don't like saying speaking tongues because I feel this is a way the church demonized it and was saying, oh, this is some other tongues that are outside of yourself, which is not the case here. It's not mediumship. Mediumship is when another spirit enters the medium and they channel it real time. Light language or source language is all you. You fully conscious and present, your higher self is aware and brings that frequency through. So there's no like intermediary. It's all you embodied at that moment. And with practice, you start learning which frequency it is, how I'm interacting with it. Is this angelic? Is this fairy? Is this dragon? Whatever that happens, and each one has its role to play. And it's like a beautiful super frequency that likes to come through when you allow it. Yeah.
It's like a minestrone soup.
Yeah.
A little bit of everything. Some pasta, some
That's
other,
right.
some veggies, a little bit of everything. It kind of works. I like that.
It's a beautiful symphony. Yes.
Exactly. Earlier you had mentioned this, and I know that I had did some research on it. We talk about quantum creator, and that we all could be a quantum creator. I know that kind of refers to the idea that we as human beings have the ability to shape our reality through our thoughts, intentions, and actions, much like how quantum particles behave in the quantum realm. How do we have an opportunity to participate in that in unique approach to life, I guess?
Yeah. I mean, when we think about quantum creation, manifestation is a big part of it, right? Synchronicity. When we experience synchronicity, that is that moment when the quantum particle kind of come together and we have that experience, and we usually feel it. Like we meet someone and we have this like deep inner knowing that there's a reason why we meet that person, or they seem very familiar, and it's like almost like divine orchestration, right? So we are quantum beings, so we have that recognition when those particular situations happen. Or for instance, deja vu. What is deja vu? Deja vu is when actually time collapses. So it's almost like feels like we re-experiencing that moment again. And I'm sure all your listeners have experienced that, and you just know you have that knowing. So for us to recognize that we quantum is step number one. There's also, sacred geometry that's within a field that we have to work with and frame that sacred geometry. And then a lot of it has to do with intention. So if we want to manifest something, we have to believe there is this field of information, and we can put our intentions, our thoughts into the field. And it's like an arrow that we shoot into the universe. It has to be concentrated. It's not too long, potent, and like an arrow, like Diana the goddess. We shoot it into the universe with our specific intention, and then we have to detach, and we have to allow the field to quantumly move it around through particles and waves and bring it back to us. But as quantum beings, we have to trust the process, trust that it will happen because it has already happened, right? Because there's no separation, there's no time, it just seems like we operate in a separate movie. But really, this movie has been already done, and there's just many different potentialities of different plots, but you can go left, you can go right, but ultimately it's the same destination.
It's really interesting. I know that you mentioned manifestation. I believe in manifestation. My wife, and our kids, we all practice manifestation. So from that perspective, I can probably assume that as quantum creators, our awareness and focus can influence our reality by consciously directing our thoughts and intentions, and we can kind of affect the outcomes of our lives in regard to that. Is that how I can understand that?
That's exactly how you understand that. So there's always potentialities in the field, right? So there's different, I would say, basically quantum waves.
Right.
And if you put more focus on that quantum wave, then that potentiality starts growing and starts getting amplified. So as you bring in more intention to it, or let's say you repeat in the same mantra every day or affirmation, then you start really believing it, then that quantum wave now has stronger ability to actually manifest itself and come into materialization than the other waves. So then the others collapse and this one wins. So that's kind of in a nutshell how it works. But our attention and intention is important in quantum creation.
Well, I think it also kind of, and again, this is my perception of what we're talking about. I think that it kind of shows and validates that everything in the universe is interconnected, and that interconnected absolutely implies that our thoughts and actions can have far-reaching effects not only on our immediate surroundings, but like on a broader perspective would be a good word. I mean, because like you just said, we have the ability to manifest something for ourselves, but at the same time, if it didn't work out, it's kind of meant to be that way. I don't know if it's meant to be that way. That's probably the wrong way of putting that.
So I think what you are trying to say, so there's two terms that I'm going to give you. The first one is quantum entanglement. It's a known term in quantum physics. In quantum entanglement is essentially means it can be a particle in one space and then a particle in a completely different space and then in a completely different environment, but yet as you start, let's say, blowing on this particle, the other particle starts feeling it too. So therefore, there's no time and space. They start mirroring each other and acting in the same type of way. So that's the
Right.
interconnectedness of it because they entangled. There's also this concept of quantum retrocausality, which means the future event, it has already the potentiality of happening because you've been, let's say, thinking about you're going to go, Michael, on this beautiful vacation, let's say on some beautiful island. And every day you put in all these pictures around and little notes. I'm going to be on the beach and somewhere in the Caribbean on this vacation. So you're making this reality happen. And this event has already happened in the past. Now, the retrocausality of it is that in the present moment, you're just kind of playing it out towards something that happens in the future. So it's almost like the time really gets collapsed, but the future event is also dictating where you're moving into, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
there's all these
Yeah.
ways that the quantum physics is trying to explain how this nature of reality operates, and there's other things called quantum tunneling. There's all these ways of us understanding how these particles operate. But if we think of ourselves as a particle, then it's easier to imagine that how we different. We're just another particle.
It's almost like the cords behind my computer setup here. They're all intertangled, but they all work separately.
And together at the
And
same
and
time.
and together, exactly together at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a
And
very
they also, and how real are they? Because imagine we are here in this holographic reality, but it's really simulation. So I always think like we are either in, my kid loves to play Roblox, either in Roblox or some Sims game, and we're just another player until we become a conscious player. So there is this concept, in these games called NPC, non-player. So non-player just keeps on doing the same thing again and again, like in Truman Show, is not aware of their actions and creations that they can manifest. But then a player that's actually conscious is a player that actually now can make different moves and jump on different things and shoot different things and create a different reality and win maybe a plot of land or whatever. It's a different, the conscious creator is the one that actually now gets to play this game in the way that serves them the best
I
and
like
makes it fun.
you mentioned the Truman Show, the good morning, good afternoon, and good night. Yeah, that's an old movie. I haven't thought about that in a while. How does spirituality like I used to be Catholic. I grew up Roman Catholic, but I'm not a practicing Catholic and I haven't been for a long time, but I am spiritual. So how does spirituality play into this? How do we bridge the gap between like the science of quantum in the science of quantum physics with spirituality?
It's a great question. And that's where I'm trying to bridge it as well, because we've been creating a lot of spiritual, but also quantum technology and trying to actually explain through science what we already feel and know. So, spirituality sometimes tends to be like very esoteric because it's an invisible force. It's hard to prove that it's actually happening. So, if you feel a certain energy in the room, let's say, or someone is doing Reiki on you, in the past it was just through the feeling, right? But now finally we have devices that are coming out, and just slowly the science is catching up to start to measure the anomaly. So for instance, one of the machines we have is called biowaves. So we are measuring the control group and then let's say we're using quantum device that is moving particles, collapses the waves into particles and imprints them. Of what happens when someone uses a quantum device, what happens to their mitochondria in the body, because the mitochondria is started to be more optimal and working 25% better and producing more energy in the body. So quantum is also helping us to be more optimal, because ultimately the body in our cells and all our systems, visible and invisible, are trying to come back into alignment. They're always trying to come back into the divine blueprint of who we are, because we are really star beings, right? We came from other star systems and we are perfect. So anytime someone is like, well, I'm trying to fix myself and heal myself, I always kind of stop them and I say, listen, if you on this roller coaster of trying to heal yourself, then you assuming something is wrong with you. But if you start with a thesis that you are perfect and you just out of alignment, it's like that instrument, let's say like a piano that's out of tune. And when you tune it, the keys start playing that symphony better, right? It just resonates. So through the law of resonance, you know that you're in alignment. So same with the body's trying to constantly come into alignment, and the geometry of the body as well. Sometimes it's out of tune. So to be master quantum creator, one has to remove these blockages that's within our fields, and sometimes it's the traumas, so it's these energy blocks. So when I do kundalini activation classes with people and I work one-on-one with them, I can actually see these knots of energy sitting in their field, and I move in this energy, and when I move it out, then more energy starts moving through their body, because we are toroidal. We have this beautiful energy field running through us constantly. We have voltage in, we electrical beings too. We have voltage in our body, and the more voltage we can have, the more frequency we can hold, the more light we can hold, and that's what really steps us into being the human illuminated, the human 2.0, like where we headed really into next versions of ourselves. And all this work is important because the traumas, unfortunately, the trapped emotions that in the field, they holding us back. Similar with beliefs. So when you ask me about religions, I think religions in essence are saying the same thing. It's just through conditioning, through these very limited, narrow beliefs of what we are, we're not, we kind of trapped ourselves as well to think this is all it is. But it's unlimited potential. And the science is just catching up. I think it's not fully there, but I think it's a great time to live at, because we finally can see some graphs, which is exciting for validation.
Well, I also think, I mean, from everything we've just spoken about, I think it provides a nice framework for understanding our existence in a more holistic manner as well. I believe in holistic, healing, for example, with with everything. I believe in Reiki, I believe in acupuncture, I believe in balance. And what I know that those in particular, because I practice them with Reiki and acupuncture and everything, balancing our meridians within our own body, it's more of a holistic approach to managing my. I have an autoimmune disease. I manage my autoimmune disease that way, and it's more holistic than it is taking 9 different drugs, which I had been on years and years and years ago. Just for the record, not illegal drugs, not recreational drugs, on medications that they had put me on that were just tearing me apart. I think it also encourages us to see ourselves as an active participant in the creation of our own reality rather than just a passive observer. It it is a unique approach. I think the idea of being quantum creators, that we can cultivate a greater awareness of more or less how we are connected, and then empower us to approach life from that perspective. I mean, this is
Sure.
what I get from our conversation.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm trying to convey. While we have this experience here on Earth, right, we can really optimize our experience. And I think we've been just really sandboxed into certain narrow concepts, but our potentiality field is much bigger. And I love that you're bringing up health, because yes, unfortunately, drugs and some of these pharma things that we kind of put forward are
Yeah.
not meant to necessarily make us thrive. They're just to manage us and disconnect us. So the more we are coming back to holistic, the more we coming back into believing that we are these magnificent gods and goddesses, we know we can heal ourselves.
Yeah.
Nothing really stops us. We really don't even need anyone. Sometimes, a teacher or like a shaman like me can help move the energy, or I transmute the energy and I purge it out of the system, or
Right.
it helps to have a facilitator or a teacher. But ultimately, my goal always is not about that person sticking with me for too long. It's more empowering them to trust themselves, to trust that they are the creators and the healers of their own bodies and their physicality. So when you bring the mind, body, spirit complex together to be in alignment, to be in that divine blueprint, original blueprint, that then anything is possible, really.
Well, and I, to expand upon what you just said a little bit, from a personal perspective, I found that meditation and mindfulness, and trying to get an inner peace, because I told you before we started this how I was anger and resentment and depressed and a little bit of everything because of my situation, and feeling sorry for myself and so forth. And I had recognized the fact that I needed to take a different approach to healing myself, and it gave me a better understanding of my body, and my soul, and how they work together, and they work together with the universe. Again, this is my personal experience with the universe in regard to helping me walk my daughter down the aisle, and not look back after 5 doctors told me I wouldn't walk.
How
That would be
amazing. And
so.
and so many stories where people, stage 4 cancer, and I've been working with a lot of cancer patients as well, and using quantum technology and different
Yeah.
modalities that I do. So for instance, what we haven't talked about is quantum healing hypnosis, which is a modality that is pretty famous out there by Dolores Cannon, and it's magnificent because you actually taking people into a journey and you have them see past lives, you have them have a conversation with their higher self. And through that experience, because time
Yeah.
again is alive, so you can actually bring people back into those points in time. There's a pattern of why this particular sickness is manifesting in the body, because the sickness actually starts as an energy that is trapped and not processed. So if you can go back to the place where the energy got trapped, whether it's in this lifetime, in childhood, let's say, or it's in another lifetime, because the soul stream, the software, is carrying all of those entrapments
Yeah.
and blockages with it. It's part of a soul contract. Each time we come in here, we have to learn a lesson. So, and having the person experience that real time, then energy starts moving. We also calling in the higher self, which is all the supports, the galactic supports, and they also helping to move energy, and really I'm just a facilitator who able to see the experience, and that's what kind of makes me a little different than a regular QHHE practitioner, because I'm a shaman, so I'm actually able to see and glean that timeline real time with them. So I'm able, as trans medium, see it, which is pretty fun for me. And I'm also a galactic historian, so I like to collect pieces from different sessions and see the bigger picture. Sometimes the life is on Earth, and sometimes it's before Earth. So sometimes Arcturians come my way, and they travel on the ships and having experiences. But in each of these lifetimes, sometimes there's a traumatic event, and that
Right.
traumatic event leaves an imprint. And that's what's blocking us. That's what disempowering us. So if we can see that energy, move that energy, accept it, recognize it, process it, then the energy field opens up, and we able then to be more quantum, more light,
From
more opportunities, more magnetism.
Well, I'm going to expand upon that and ask you, because of that, saying that in particular, what can we do to become more like a quantum creator ourselves? What can we do to recognize that we want to take that step? I know they can come to you, and we'll talk about that. But is there something that we can do right now that would allow us to give us a better understanding of what we just spoke about and realize what a quantum creator we are.
I think, like you mentioned, just doing meditations every day. So finding stillness and chaos is super important because the more still you are, then you start listening. And I think when we get so busy, we don't give the space to connect. So it's really important to find that stillness within your day. So cultivating practices, because practice promotes presence. So whether, carving that morning time to do meditation, going outside, doing sun gazing, connecting to the sun, because sun also has a lot of light codes and is supporting us to be more quantum. There's more light that we can start absorbing into our DNA and expanding the mitochondria, the DNA. It's all light, really. And so every morning at 8 a.m., 7:30, when it's still kind of in the healthy zone, you should be, or sunsets. I like sunrises even more. Work with the sun. Cultivate that practice of meditation and stillness. Um, do something that's different. So if every day you're taking the same route to work, try something new. Break that pattern. Maybe drive in a different type of way. Take the longer route versus the shorter route and see how that feels. So those who are quantum creators are able to break the norm and be curious enough and staying curious constantly to see different perspective. Um, so those are like some key things to do. And yeah, just energizing yourself constantly every day in different, there's so many different practices that supports the quantum connection.
We've mentioned quantum quite a bit because it's important. That's what the show's about. But I know that quantum may scare some people because, when you think of quantum, the first thing you think of is quantum physics. And
Mhm.
even the people who are a fan of the Big Bang Theory, he was a quantum physicist. So, do you have to know anything in depth for quantum physics to understand this?
You don't. I mean, I've just mentioned just a couple of terms of quantum, and that's how we can apply it into our lives for creation and manifestation. I think quantum is one of those words that some people are fearful of, and other ones like thinks it's too sexy or it's overused. But really, it's quantum is the field of information, and that's all we really need to know. And within the field of information, there's light, and there is so like when we're talking about light language, right, say it's a type of language that brings packets of these quantum information here. So as a hardware, this body, we can only receive so much data. So we should think of ourselves as like, quantum machines. So it shouldn't scare us because it's just a term, but really because we are particles ourselves and we operate in this nature of reality. It's just a different twist in understanding from metaphysics perspective on what we already know. So it's nothing different. It's just how we explain things, and what that kind of tries to unpack what seems to be very esoteric.
So and that's a nice way to approach that. So for the record, you don't have to be a quantum physicist. You
Yeah,
just, you just have to want the desire to be able to understand how you are a quantum creator and you have the ability to take control of your life, your surroundings, and connect
right.
it with the rest of the universe, which I think is like a brilliant opportunity. So I know that somebody can come to you for some help in regard to this if they're stuck or if they're interested or if they don't know where to go first. Let's talk about Love Ripple.
Yeah, so Love Ripple actually is like overarching umbrella and soul mission for me. Years ago, when I was on this path, I realized that as we helping people on along the route, we create love. We create ripples of love. So we helping someone, they opening up their heart, they really feel in love. And this is what the name of the game in this universe, right? Is to feel as much unconditional love as possible of the source, because we are love, we are light. And as we start feeling it and being it, then we can go to other people and help them. and then that person can help someone else, and then we create in these beautiful ripples across the earth. And so for me, Love Ripple is that overarching umbrella of all my services and everything I'm doing, and future programs that I'm already creating and books that I'm going to be writing, because I know you want to talk about it. But I mentioned about quantum healing hypnosis. That's the modality where I take someone to go through their past lives, galactic lives, have a conversation with the highest self. The Kundalini activation classes that I'm doing is activating people's fields. So the way it usually looks, it's like we do a beautiful cacao ceremony to open the heart. I love working with a cacao. And then there's a sound healing for an hour where we use gongs and singing bowls and tuning forks, all these beautiful frequency tools to bring us back into coherence, into rest and digest, and everyone just surrenders and feels really relaxed. And then we work with people's, we turn on the field and we allow the somatic body of the person to just kind of relax even more, but then activate. So in this quantum field of information, there's all this energy flowing through. We energetic beings, right? So how can we optimally ensure this energy works, goes through all the chakras, down and up, and vibrates in our cells? So as a galactic shaman, as a Kundalini activator, I'm transmitting that frequency into the space and people react to it, or I gently touch someone, and it's a very organic process and it's very beautiful. It can be intense. I love doing it in person, but even online it works again because there's no time and space of separation. Just similar to Reiki in some ways, but more intense. And that's why I call it Phoenix Rising, because it just really starts rising through you, and it kind of people really feel the jingle. But transmission is kind of how a lot of this work for me right now comes through. So the more I'm seeing myself as just a divine vessel of these frequencies, whether it's through light language, kuratia naturtushta. So it's like I speak from my heart, from my soul, and it's a frequency language, or just through my hands, or I'm just amplifying the energy in the room. People react to it because they are frequency beings too.
It's a wonderful opportunity to, especially when you talk about Phoenix rising, I think about the phoenix that rose from the ashes, and you're kind of almost reborn into a higher consciousness a little bit, if I can may say that.
Yeah, a phoenix is actually one of my main symbols. That's kind of what I am. I that's my power animal in shamanism is the phoenix. And so the phoenix is definitely that resurrection frequency. It's the frequency of being able to create new versions of yourself. So part of yourself needs to die. Part of your,
Move
I
forward.
call it like unpeeling the onion. Part of your layer needs to separate, and sometimes tears come, and then we have to release so that new version, more aligned version, more true version comes through. And it's constant process. It doesn't really stop. Like I feel the phoenix is the one that is able to resurrect itself and
Do it.
resurrect itself into the new, for sure. The other modality that many come to me for, it's called crystalline soul healing. And whether it's going through hypnosis, but crystalline soul healing is more of that type of transmission. So it's a light language transmission and a template galactic transmission that helps to align people's fields. So when someone feels they are out of attunement, or they need that tuning, or cut cords and clear these blockages that I was talking about in more like in-depth quantum surgery way, in a sense. That's the one that, yeah, if you go to loveripple.org, there's more information about that. It's actually a beautiful template that was given. So if you think about that, everything is holographic, everything is math, right? This whole quantum reality is mathematical. Then just like we run code on a computer and press command, and then like in the matrix things
Yeah.
change, we can do that for others too, and help them to recode themselves.
Which is, I say, it's a brilliant opportunity to be able to move forward in life in a positive way. How do you get your website? What's your website, please?
It's loveripple.org, and you can yeah, just see, like you can click book session, or read more about different services and new programs that are upcoming. And here in New Jersey, there's we would do at least 2 workshops a month right now for Kundalini activation, as well as I teach quantum soul dance. So it's like more ecstatic dance, but it's always about bringing people into these higher states of consciousness, but without the plant medicine. It's all organic. Sometimes cacao, but cacao is very gentle, just for a heart opener. Just I love to work with people in in the workshop setting, but some of the work is done online. It's just as powerful because through the quantum entanglement, there's no separation. So then when I do healing work or calibration work, because I don't like the word healing either, when I recalibrate someone, I become them. And so I'm able to move energy and help them clear and recalibrate and really step into the divine. Yeah. And if someone wants to express and learn about light language, I have a beautiful, very affordable course on sourcelanguage.org and self-paced. So you can always open to that or do one-on-one sessions. So that's kind of being open to possibility that you have other expressions than earthly language.
That's outstanding. And I'll make sure that all that's in the show notes for everybody just to be able to follow the link and find you very quickly and easily. And your Instagram handle is on the screen so that we can find you there as well. Thank you very much for being here. What a wonderful conversation. We could talk for another hour. If
we could. And I actually want to leave with a little bit of like the light language, if possible, a little message.
Can I do this? Usually I ask at the end, this is one more thing before we go. So do you have any words of wisdom before we leave?
Right.
And that'll fit.
Perfect.
This is one more thing before we go. Do you have any words of wisdom that you can share with us?
Yes, I would like to have everyone have a moment of just, if you can, closing your eyes and deeply breathing into your heart. And my words of wisdom are going to be in source language and light language. So I want you to feel the frequency itself. And it's going to be about the heart and acceptance of self. Shuratianu rutukuashtiretiashu, Maya tiana sutuarati mushtima, Irukurstar ak ustumbuati, Ayaku ayata, Shimbua sanuna ishtaratia stumbuaya. Thank you so much.
That was amazing words of wisdom. I'm not sure what they are yet, but I know that it will come to my soul. It will come to my soul.
Yeah, it was about, so with the light language, there's no direct translation. It was about trust in yourself, trust in your voice, trust in your heart, and know that you have all the answers.
This works. Brilliant words of wisdom. Diana, thank you very much for coming on. Thank you very much for this conversation, for sharing your wisdom, your experience, and everything else with it. I look forward to having another one with you.
I would love to come back. Thank you, Michael, so much for holding this beautiful container.
For the rest of it, everybody out there, thank you very much for being part of this community. Thank you for being part of one more thing before you go. And before you all go, have a great day. Have a great week. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for listening to this episode of One More Thing Before You Go. Check out our website at beforeyougopodcast.com. You can find us as well as subscribe to the program and rate us on your favorite podcast listening platform.